I'll try to not maybe much, but do something at least half as nice as Chris did. So I wanted to talk to you about my subjective feelings and like lessons about possibility of using technologies we know from our daily lives as mobile devs in full stack, meaning backend and front-end development. And just a disclaimer: this is very. I'm not in any way a specialist. I'm not working professionally as a full stack Swift developer. I'm a hobbyist. I like to explore and try those technologies and interact with people, check the code. So this is highly subjective, and this is from the perspective as a developer. All right. So the question we'll try to answer is if it's actually possible to develop a full stack Swift app. Okay. So there's a quick agenda. So obviously the first question we will answer is like, why would you even want to do it? There are other technologies and other tools why don't you just want to stay in Xcode? Then I'll maybe try to highlight some of the maybe obvious problems and their solutions. And we'll end with some kind of closing remarks about the kind of maybe worries that you might have about performance or actually observability or like actual big challenges related to developing backends and frontends in Swift. All right, so if you would like to come from mobile to backend and frontend, why would you want to do it? Like for me, it was basically I was finding working daily life in the corporate world a bit boring. Like usually it's just very similar stuff, like adding new screen, like moving labels, changing colors. You know how it is. Okay, we need to redesign the screen. We need to, I don't know, do this modular tracking. There is just daily life of a kind of standard mobile developer is kind of boring, and it's not really challenging. And I like a challenge, so I think if you would like to do more difficult stuff, there is definitely a lot of that when working, especially on backend. Another use case for you or your project might be that it's just so natural to reuse the same code between your mobile app and your backend. Swift is an excellent language, so if you can do it and reuse your learnings, reuse all your knowledge, and reuse your tools, it's a great advantage. If you work in a company that has a substantial development team, very often there might be an actual business need for some dashboards, dev tooling, some, I don't know, ingesting logs or anything like that. And I think you could advertise and sell Swift as a good language to do it, because since you could kind of harness the power of your mobile team to develop tools to improve their productivity. I try to explore creating a side business with that, like creating a SaaS, even hiring some people to do it. It's very difficult, but it's kind of easy way to do it because you know the technology very well. So it's kind of the cheapest possible way for you to enter this market without spending so much time in learning other technologies, which when you have family and all that stuff, the time is the amount of time you can spend learning new stuff is not that huge. It's always good to expand your knowledge. I started as a mobile developer and been mobile developer my whole professional life. So there were a lot of discussions between front end and mobile teams and backends, and there are very often like terms like deployment and databases and all that. Like you don't know it, right, until you actually dip your toes into actual development. You might not actually understand what are backend people or front end people talking about. So I think it's great to actually expand your knowledge, gain more context, and just be, I think, a better overall software engineer. And all of those together, I think, it's maybe not right now, but in the future, I think if you have a lot of knowledge, if you have an actual experience and knowledge about full stack, it will just increase your value as an employee, as a software engineer. All right, so now the obvious questions, like where is the data center that you can put your MacBook and host your server written in Swift? Well, the good news, you don't need to do it. It's actually these days Swift is pretty multi-platform language. Like you can run it on almost all distributions of Linux. You can run it on Windows. You can even run it on embedded devices. So it's that's not a problem. You don't even need to use Xcode, right? There are open source tools integrated to, for example, VS Code, which enable full IDE support from tools other than Xcode. I think since 2 weeks ago, I think it's possible to actually compile and run apps, iOS apps on Linux. I think there are tools like this as well. So this is, I think we are hitting this boundary where you might actually be able to do everything related to iOS and Swift without ever touching Xcode. Sorry. Okay. It's even possible, and those are some new tools from Apple. It's possible to compile to Linux on a Mac, which is often a problem, as you know. Not everybody has a Linux, and if you want to, for example, rent a virtual private server, they are very small, and to compile the application, it actually need a lot of resources. So it's possible to compile on Mac into Linux, and it's even possible to build a Docker container on the Mac directly, like it's actually a Swift compiler plugin, but I'll come back to this later. All right, so the first kind of mysterious word that I didn't know what it actually means is like deployment. Like, what's that? Well, it's actually like in mobile world. In mobile world, you just upload to Apple to TestFlight and that's it. Like it's so easy. It's not a problem. There are different challenges. You cannot really do it instantly. But basically, it's much easier problem. In backend world, it's difficult because you need to actually have a machine to do it. You can rent one, like you can rent VPS, which is like virtual private server, which is like basically like a virtual machine that you rent and you own all of it, and you pay, for example, I don't know, you pay for 4 gigabytes and this much processing power, right? So this is kind of the easiest to understand solution, right? You can also go like step of abstraction further and use some cloud providers which kind of abstract the machine, and you don't even have to type any Linux command. You don't even have to touch terminal, and like popular providers of cloud services they are basically popular among like Swift backend developers is Flyo and DigitalOcean, or for simpler solutions, for simple applications, you don't even need server at all. There is this term that I didn't know what it means before as well, like serverless, which means basically that you can have like a piece of code that you embed on some cloud service, and then this service will only run this code when needed, right? So the advantages is that you don't pay for it all the time. Like when you rent a VPS, you rent monthly, I don't know, 10, 100, $200, depending what are your needs. But with serverless, you pay like per request and per response. So it's kind of nice for small simple use cases when you, for example, you need to ingest a little bit of data or process something. Basically, whenever it's more like functional unidirectional flow, and you don't have to like keep state or I don't know, talk to the database too much. Okay. So what's even a bit more deal? What's deployment? So when you're building a Swift application, you need to first compile it. you might want to set up all your variables like configuration, like endpoints to your database, like secrets, all of that. Then you might want to strip some of the results of the build configuration. Then you need to upload it, for example, to your VPS, launch the binary, and configure the logic. How should it launch? What should happen if it crashes? All of that, and it's quite tedious work. It's from a perspective of a mobile developer, it's a nightmare. Like some of the suggested tools for that is like Supervisor or Systemd, where we can actually configure what's the binary, how should it be run, and for example, whenever your server crashes, system will automatically launch your binary, right? But I tried it. It's very annoying to like push new versions with that solution, because you have to like either half-ass your scripts and try to do it manually with a script, or there is definitely better solution, which is Docker, and you should just use it. Like it's a night and day. So when I first heard about it, I thought it's like literally magic. Like I was like, why don't mobile developers have something like this? What it is basically like if you can like package a virtual machine into like small container, and you can spin them up and combine them together very quickly. And what it means also that you can package you can kind of, it solves the problem of like it works on that machine, but then you move it to a different Linux distribution and it has a different version, and it's not up to date. Well, this solves most of it, because it's like a virtual machine that you can very easily spin up and launch. And then there are actually, for example, if you like to run your Swift in a Docker, right? What you do is actually Apple is providing a package, a Docker image, which is like this image of a virtual machine that has only the needed parts needed for running Swift. So it means it's like everybody in the world who works on that has the same kind of standard virtual machine, standard Linux distribution that is configured perfectly to run your Swift code, which is like solves so much problems. You don't have to, whenever you like deploying your code, you don't have to like first install Swift runtime to even run your code. So if you will try to dip your toes into Swift on backend, don't try this VPS route. I tried it. Just go straight to Docker, even though it kind of feels scary, because it's like the level of abstraction is quite higher. Like this, so this is kind of the minimal example of Docker image. So basically, you kind of specify how deployment looks like in code, right? So, for example, first line means that when compiling this image into a container, it would fetch the latest version of Linux distribution for Swift. Then set the working directory, build Swift in release mode, and then basically that's the command that would launch your executable. And you take this, and then you can run it on any machine and on cloud provider, and it will run always the same. It will fetch. It will execute those steps always in the same order. And what's also like amazing, and it blew my mind when I learned about this, that if your setup is kind of more complex, all of this is cached, right? So, and I guess as Chris said, this is like a model that's uses a lot of caching, and if you change, if between runs only one line changes, all of the previous layers are kept. So those compilations are very fast. All right. So another problem that you might feel kind of uneasy with is looking like, how do I write API and all this REST and all that? Like, I don't know how. So it's kind of difficult, and it's to do it manually and to follow the standards and try to stay correct. It's difficult, and if you ever worked with REST API, you know it's kind of tedious to stay correct between the client and the server. In companies that they did not discover Swagger yet, it's hard to find documentation and ask about the edge cases and try them. Like it's a pain. Obviously, like there is no way to test your code. There is not an easy way to test your client and server code. Okay, are they actually valid? To actually check if they work correctly, you would have to like manually go and check and run each request. So this is solved problem. Thankfully, there are two kind of main solutions available. If you might know, you might have heard Swagger, which is kind of the previous name of this open API standard, which is used to, like in the simplest form, it's used to define your REST APIs, and you can specify your servers, your methods, all the inputs and outputs, and a lot more. But this is just mostly for this kind of HTTP idempotent systems where you'll kind of call the method and receive response back. For the for kind of more kind of WebSocket type of applications where you want to open connection and then have real-time communication like chat, like I don't know, tracking stock market. Like there was a guy talking about XTB and their application. So they really have to receive the information from the backend as quickly as possible. So I think they use gRPC, which is it's like binary protobuf is like a binary version of JSON, and gRPC is kind of faster. It's packaging this and efficiently sending this over the wire. The end result is the advantage in using those is like you write your how your API looks like. This is like a minimal example of the open API or Swagger. You define your servers, your versions, you can add the documentation there, examples. You can really describe your API in as much detail as you want, and then use this tool from Apple to kind of get all those all the code that's perfectly following the standard and perfectly matches these open API specification. You can run it by finger, or you can actually. It's also distributed as a Swift build plugin, so it will be run automatically whenever you build the application. It's really great. Okay, so this is kind of API and deployment. To me, this was funnily enough. Like I don't have much web experience, and as I said at the beginning, I really when I started exploring this, I wanted to stay as close to Swift world as possible. So I didn't want to like maybe at this point get my hands dirty with JavaScript, with React. But the problem is like pure HTML is just it's like super static. It's you cannot have really any interactivity with it, and like you cannot really impress any girl with that. So there are three main ways you could kind of harness Swift to do front end for web. So the most popular type is like static generators, right? So basically you describe your code in HTML with some kind of, how do you call it? Like a places where then during compilation your generator will input the values. Then there is backend for front end, which is kind of okay. We're not using JSON to communicate. We're gonna be using actual HTML and sending this over the wire, which is I will talk about a little bit later. Which is I think the golden kind of middle from my perspective, to have both simplicity and dynamic websites. Then there is a WebAssembly, which, believe it or not, like you can actually run your Swift code in the browser, like completely natively. All right, so this is this kind of templating solution. So if you would like to have your HTML to look like this, you kind of strip out the varying parts and put this kind of pseudo language. This example is from Leaf, which is kind of the most popular, I guess, templating engine for the open source Swift backend developers. It looks almost identical to HTML. So for web people, it's probably the first choice because they feel right at home. Maybe for mobile devs, it's like kind of meh. The problem is like one of the big problems for me is like the logic becomes embedded into this big string, which is HTML file, and you don't really have a way to test it. And it's and then managing dependencies, like embedding one inside another, if you want to build some more complex nested structure, becomes, in my opinion, absolute mess. And it's just crazy house. The nice thing is, like, if you work with this solution, you change this template file, you save it, you are instantly refreshed because you don't have to compile anything. So for quick iterations, and if you know your text editor well, you can be really efficient with typing this. So this is definitely a huge advantage. One more limitation is like you have for construct, you have if and else, you have some bits, but you don't have the full power of the compiler and the actual language, right? So this is very limiting. You cannot just use your own, you can use for, but what if I want to use different kind of enumeration pattern that suits better my needs? Like, it's not possible. You're tied to some templating language, and that's it. Obviously, it's popular, so there's a lot of tooling and community built around it because it's coming from the native web developers. This is their way of doing this. Kind of more native to us is generating HTML from Swift. And there are many solutions to do it. It's usually it's like you describe you might describe your the structure of your HTML and run it to generate your HTML. I guess you understand how it works because like Chris talked about this. But I'm really impressed how far we can take this. I think this is the screenshot of this of a snippet of a code from this library called Ignite. And you can without the interactive part, but you can write almost Swift UI like code and get like real nicely styled websites. Which is when you're starting from zero knowledge in web, this is great method to start going and start doing some actual useful and stuff that doesn't look horrible, which is not that easy when you have zero CSS skills. So yeah, there are advantages. It's type safe, right? You know it. Like, it's Swift language. It's similar. You can even use Swift UI previews. I was so impressed when I saw that Point 3 guys. Their whole website is written in Swift, and if you check out their repo, you can open it, and for each website there is actual Swift UI preview, because they use this basically a web browser inside Swift preview, and you can type your Swift and get the website updated live automatically. So it's a great kind of hack to harness the power of Swift UI previews to do the front end. And yeah, you don't use templates, but you can use any logic you want, right? Which is nice. So yeah, this is basically how some of these tools look like. The example from Point 3. So this is, well, if you are iOS developer, you might have visited this website. It's a very solid website. Another library from John Sandel, as you can see, like all of them, they look kind of similar-ish. They try to kind of take a blend between HTML and Swift to kind of feel native in both. My favorite is definitely this. it's gained a lot of traction recently. It's full Swift. It's crazy fast, and it kind of the syntax is written in such a way that it resembles HTML very much. So you're writing Swift, but if you, I don't know, try to steal some HTML, it's quite easy to translate between, and you can even use obviously LLMs to help you with that. And this is like it's actually was quite crazy to me how much you could kind of force Swift to look like HTML. It's really powerful. I love it. But then, okay, the interactivity. There is actually, I think, a perfect solution, and I learned about it a few months ago. It's basically, this technology is called HTMX. And the actual reason I wanted to do this presentation is you need to follow this guy on Twitter. Like, this is like a sketch comedy all night, every day. It's great guy. Some samples of the memes. This guy just loves to fight with Uncle Bob about clean code. He hates clean code. I kind of I'm on his side. Also, I don't think he likes unit testing so much. So how do you define unit tests? What's the unit, right? So yeah, definitely HTMX is awesome, right? So what is it? It's like extension to HTML. It feels so natural that's why for me it clicked. Like, you know, when you have like a button in HTML, you use you want to have like a link, right? So you add a attribute and you put some address, and then you click it, and web browser goes when you want to go. So HTMX is extension of that, and you can add to any element, to any HTML element, you can add kind of what is the action that should trigger event, and what should be kind of the reaction. So in this case, for example, when the button is clicked, right, then the web browser would execute post request to that website, and basically swap entire element with the HTML received from the backend. And this is so useful, because you on your backend you generate your HTML. Then when, I don't know, something happens on the website, you prepare an endpoint for that, and you reuse the same tools to return new version of just a little bit of the HTML, which gets swapped by the browser. So you can have really dynamic websites. You can have like, and those changes can be animated. So things like, I don't know, infinite scrolling with zero JavaScript skills become like as easy as typing basically 2 attributes to HTML. So I highly encourage trying this approach. It feels so natural that I think it might be adopted as a standard, as a part of HTML standard. Because it's just like, why only buttons and links can have interactivity? Like, why only forms can send post requests? Why only post requests? Like, so this is the solution to that, and I think it's a great kind of great middle ground to get interactivity as a noob as myself. All right, there is one more solution, but it feels like it's kind of dead, but because there are like the tools that enable to run Swift inside the browser. There are people actually who implemented Swift UI, kind of Swift UI clones in this tool, but the repos seem kind of dead. So initially I was like, yes, this is even better, because like I can just learn nothing and do awesome websites, but like nobody uses it and repos are dead. And I think it's amazing that it's possible, but I think it's just too much removed from the actual web experience to actually work. But yeah, it's like basically you can do fully interactive websites with that tool. So it's very impressive. All right, so another thing that it's very different is databases. Like obviously there is no core data. Like maybe if you would run your server app on the Mac, you could use it, but like you could not host it really realistically anywhere. The kind of thing that's, you know, as an iOS mobile developer, it's kind of tricky. Like you have to learn SQL properly. Like with iOS, like usually core data can give you like 99.9% of what you need, right? You don't really need to do more when running a mobile application. Yeah, but the question is, okay, what are the choices? What should I use? So I think a good kind of easy solution is to use the same default database as core data uses, which is SQLite for local development. It's awesome. It's quick. It's, you know, you can set it up in 0 time, right? You're setting up other databases. Like maybe if you work with that for a lot of time, maybe it's easy. But when you start from 0, it's not really easy to configure. And those are like popular choices. Like Postgres is open source. MySQL is kind of it's commercial product, and both are like SQL compliant databases. And there are two databases, Mongo and DynamoDB, that are kind of used. There are no tables and rows there. You put JSON there and try to query the JSON, or, you know, basically for unstructured data, and you can use it to cache stuff and so on. So in terms of Swift, there are ORMs, so you are not strictly forced to like do everything raw dogging SQL. I love this word. Fluent is like ORM. It's a very mature ORM for Swift backends, which means basically if you don't need to, if you don't want to, you can manipulate your database via Swift objects and code. So which is kind of, you know, when you're starting, that's kind of what you want, because, you know, you don't need the entire power of SQL to add some objects to a table. So it's definitely nice, although with relationships and some more complex stuff, it's kind of tricky and it's very crashy. Another, I don't know why I keep advertising them, but yeah, they're Point 3 guys. They just, I think, finished implementing this amazing tool for generating types of SQL, and I love it. It's basically 100%. It ensures 100% correctness in generating SQL, which is, I think, nice to, you know, if you work with such amazing language as Swift, and we have all the type safety, all that correctness, all the tooling. It's nice to take it where it makes sense, and I think in here it actually makes sense. So check it out if you're interested. Kind of, it's not really that important question in my opinion, but there are two main kind of frameworks to write Swift backends and frontends. There is Vapor and Hummingbird. Vapor is kind of, it's much older. I think it's like, I don't know, 10 years old. It's written right now using Swift Neo, which is this framework for Apple for non-blocking I/O, which means like it runs on billions of devices. It's very fast, but it's not really native to Swift concurrency, and this is where Hummingbird comes in. It's based from day one on Swift concurrency, and it's much smaller, much nimbler framework. It's much easier to learn, and it's, I think, in a lot more active development. But both are running in production in many companies. There were actually some older frameworks that kind of died. Even IBM, I think, worked on some framework in Swift for backends, but they down. But so now we have two contenders, and I think both are really nice with excellent syntax and, like, you know, relatively big community, right? Swift backend community is like this big compared to, I don't know, JavaScript or Java, but there are active forums and there is active development happening. Regarding performance, I think like you don't have to worry about anything. Even with small VPS, you can really expect a lot performance from Swift. This is also something that's kind of foreign to mobile developers, like all this observability. Like in my experience in mobile projects, like not even big companies don't kind of collect logs remotely from the devices, right? Which is like out of the question in the backend. You need to know what your backends are doing. They don't even have screens. Like you don't know if they crashed, right? So this is critical, and there are thankfully a lot of tools, even from Apple, which is like another sign that they invest so much money into this, because they build the language. Now they want to use this language and in their own backends, because they have a lot of them. So there has been a lot of kind of industry standard tooling that enable your Swift backend to be plugged into existing infrastructure and using ready systems that follow the same standards, and you can like track the health and performance of your backend. There are a few challenges. Like I actually investigated a lot of forums, like where people actually are having problems when using Swift on the backend, right? So there are two main things that got repeated many times. Is that like it takes a lot of time to compile Swift, but we know that it's obscene. The other problem is because like imagine you have your web service that's, I don't know, serving hundreds of calls concurrently, and you divide it by 0 in one handler of your request, like, and then the application crashes, right? There is actually a fatal error inside, and there is not easy way to, what were the flights what were the requests in flight? What should I do it? Like when the application gets destroyed, like how do I resume that? There is no easy way to do it. So this is kind of, it's kind of a big problem, but as far as you know, like any system can crash. So you have to basically use transactions and track the process of your requests anyway, because even without crashing, the system can go down. So you have to be prepared for that. Obviously, well, this is the first talk I think about Swift on the back end, which means there is like, it's not a popular thing. Like there is not many jobs, there is not many frameworks, although it's possible to run production stuff with Swift. There are some nitpicking. You could nitpick that, like my fancy arcane Linux distribution does not support it. Well, yeah, but there are many that do. So I don't think it's a huge problem. The last thing is that just I hate CSS. It's powerful, but it's and coming from UIKit and SwiftUI to this, like how do I move this thing to the corner? Like I don't know how to do it. Yeah, another advertisement, and I'm not paid for this, but I actually paid for the ticket. There is this conference I attended last year. I think it's awesome. It takes place in science in London, in Science Museum. It's 2 days. Yeah, great people, great crowd, and you could learn a lot. There's a lot of attendees from all over the world, from Apple, from Amazon, all sorts of places, which means like everybody's trying to build the community, but it's just difficult. But I think there are less and less mobile jobs. So maybe those Swift developers who cannot find a job, like maybe we can build some backends together. So yeah, that's it. Any questions?
I would like to kick it off with, what have you built with full stack Swift?
Well, what I built some experiments, some proof of concept. Like I built like a chat application. I built like a small SaaS for like tracking orders in a car wash, right? But I built this, it worked, but to scale this up is just like I still don't have the time and knowledge, right? So you can do stuff, but I personally didn't build any production stuff, just hobbyist things basically.
My trouble is because I love Swift, right? And I'm thinking, what do you think about the future? How do you see the future? And do you feel like there will be gonna some days when we're gonna drop React and JavaScript and replace that with the Swift. Do you think like it's possible, or because I don't really think that it's possible.
Well, I think no, like look, like UIKit is it's not dead. Like Objective-C is not dead. Like there will be new tools, new technologies coming, but the old ones will stay, right? And depending on your actual business needs and business conditions and your team and the knowledge you possess, the better tools you have, the more choice of tools you have, the better, right? And for to write something, something simple or a little bit more complex, like you can do it with like no skills. Like this is the actual business case for using Swift, right? So I don't think that there will be a day where nobody will use React and people would move to Swift. Like that's not possible. But I think there are still still a lot of innovation coming, because as I said, there is so much investment into this technology from Apple, from Amazon. Like Amazon is investing so much. They are basically on every conference, like advertising that they can run Swift on their backends. It's just very efficient language, right? It's a good language. It's open source. All the tools that I mentioned, they are open source, right? So there's just community being built, and the more tools and more community there will be, more people will use it, right? It's like a network effect. I even saw, like I don't know if you know, like Elixir and this framework called Phoenix or LiveView, right? This is like it's even more powerful than React, because like it kind of does so efficient diffing, and you can have amazing interactive websites with much better language than JavaScript, right? So I think there is something for everybody, and the future is bright, basically.
The thing is, let's say I'm gonna make a new side project, right? And thinking about the reasons why I should go and try Swift. And what could I say to my team, for example, to convince them that we should choose the Swift this time, right? Not Golang, for example.
But yeah, I mean, if you have knowledge in Golang and you build many websites in Golang, like, yeah, just keep building what you know best, right? But for, as I said, from my perspective, like, I have limited time. Like, I want to play with it, and it's actually possible to do quite complex stuff, interactive stuff, right? You could argue, is it better to go and learn new language, or just stick with the language technology and just use it for the new purpose? Like, I don't know, like I should try both and see what's better, right? So I don't think it's possible. If you have a knowledge in your team that and people who build websites in Go, like, probably doesn't make sense. But if you don't have that, like, why don't you try this? Like, if you want to have some simple dashboard, or some landing page, or even something more complex, like point-free website built in Swift, like it's you can, and this is a business, right, that actually makes money, right? So yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I have a little bit more of the questions. So you have mentioned the Open API generator from Apple. There are some others, but if we do have backend in Swift, have you considered maybe just directly sharing models, like code, like maybe by reusing packages or something like that, to have exactly the same code on the backend and front end?
What do you mean exactly the same code?
I mean, let's imagine I would be creating some API service for our backend, and it will be talking to me with some models, like something I would send to the backend from the front end, and the response. And I could have separate package that would define models, like basically interface of the service, and I could use this interface in my server and in my client code.
Yeah,
like
so
alternative to CodeGen.
I tried it, and to me it was like it's obvious that should do it, but actually no. Actually, like, you should separate your layers, because your client doesn't need to know all the stuff that your backend needs to know about. And there is no way to kind of, in an automated fashion, kind of thread the line and, okay, I'm reusing the object, but only my client knows those fields and my backend knows those fields. That's not possible. I actually spoke with the creator of this generator, Open API generator from Apple, and like, He was like, why would you want to do it? Like, it's better to have, have those separate. What those generator gives you is, you specify your API, you run, either run it manually or compiler runs it for you, and you have like a harness, like empty implementations of all the methods that have they perfectly follow the standard. And the logic inside on the client and the backend is going to be very different always, right? So there is actually a surprisingly little value in sharing the code. You should share, I don't know, maybe copy. You should share maybe some pieces of logic, but the models actually there is very little value, because if you think about it, why would you couple client and backend together? Like we know that coupling code together without need, it's not really a good idea, and this applies here. Like do not couple this unless it really makes sense.
Okay, kind of get it, not fully. And the second question would be, when we are working in a non-standard environment, have you considered using non-standard editors? Like we all obviously work in Xcode, which crashes constantly. Maybe VS Code, NeoVim, whatever else.
I tried it. It's quite good. It's just it's a matter of like a muscle memory and all that stuff. Like there are things that are amazing that VS Code with Swift gives you. Like you can use Docker. Like you can actually, instead of compiling locally, you can configure VS Code in such a way that you would be running your code on a Mac, but inside the Linux container. So like there are possibilities to extend VS Code in ways that Xcode will never give us, right? I think also it's just a matter of preference, like which tool you prefer more, right? After all, like it's more important how you think than actual writing. So that's also like personal preference. But I tried it; it's quite nice. But very often I don't need it. When I need to implement some logic, I don't really need VS Code, and my muscle memory, all the shortcuts and all that. Just I feel at home in Xcode with all its problems, obviously.
Let's give another round of applause to Tomek.